Welcome, everyone, to Mongols. This is our Indy 11 Insider episode where we take a quick look at the Hounds' next opponent, Indy 11. Joining me for this one is Greg Rakestraw, Vice President of ISC Sports Network and voice of Indy 11. Greg, thanks for taking time to join me.
My pleasure, and always looking forward to the challenge of the Riverhounds in Pittsburgh at Highmark against the Indy 11 on Saturday night.
Well, we will see. We'll talk a little bit. Hopefully it will be a challenge, but obviously Indy have been on a bit of a hot streak recently. They won their last 5, haven't lost in their last 6, have outscored their opponents 13-5 in that period. What do you personally like about Indy 11 this year?
Love everything about this team right now. The team literally completed their best month in club history. They have not lost a league match since playing Charleston April the 13th. Have advanced as far as they ever have in the Open Cup. Now, they have not faced an MLS team yet. That changes the next round when they go play at Atlanta United in terms of the quarterfinals in July. There have been unbeaten months for the Indy 11 before. There's been a month where they claimed every possible point. And if you combine both the Open Cup and league play, they have done that. So I've been around this club since day number 1 of April of 2014. I was around when in the NASL days when the team won the spring championship and battled the Cosmos for the Soccer Bowl championship in November of 16. And this is as good of a run of form as I have seen from this club in its history.
What's the difference? What do you think is making the team click at this point?
I think part of it is, frankly, the meat grinder of a schedule they played for 6 weeks. Going to Oakland, who's been, fair to Midland so far this year, but that's still like one of the cross-country flights that every team has to make. And that's the first match out of the chute. Frankly, that Memphis win in week number 2 is looking a lot better now, how they're playing. We weren't sure what Memphis was going to be like back in mid-March. Then you host Sacramento, that is good every year. Mm-hmm. Even though Indy just dispatched of Detroit City in the Open Cup and beat them in the preseason, Indy was one of the victims of Detroit when they won their first 5 matches. That's the first 4 games out of the chute for the Indy 11. Then guess who the next 2 are? Louisville and Charleston, who are the 2 best teams in the, if not the league, certainly in the East, and that's the only teams that Indy's behind right now. So, I think now that we have the benefit of 11, 12 matches in, not counting Open Cup competition, we could see that this team was still figuring some things out, as you had half of a squad back from Mark Lowry's system last year. And now new faces being added by Sean McCauley this year, that it took a little while for that gelling process to kick in. And seemingly, the first one was North Carolina. That wasn't an easy one on April the 27th. They've really been playing much better, say from the San Antonio Open Cup match, and it carried over to Miami. And now the last couple of weeks that has continued. So I think part of it's just, this group kind of figuring it out, but also that was a pretty brutal opening, part of the schedule where you're really playing perhaps the 3 best teams in the league in Sacramento, Charleston, and Louisville in the span of 4 weeks.
Who are the, 2 to 3 players that somebody who isn't familiar with Indy 11, they come to you, they ask you about the team. Who are the 2 to 3 players that you're like, these are the guys to watch? Like, these are the guys that are making stuff happen.
Sure. Jack Blake is the one that immediately comes to mind. And Jack has been a really good player in our league. Jack is from England. Jack has played 9 years, either in the NASL or the USL Championship. He's been solid. He's ever been spectacular. And, maybe this is more of a baseball thing than anything else. Maybe we do this in football, although the stars so rarely play in the football preseason compared to spring training in baseball. But Jack was on a heater in the preseason. I mean, he was just fine in the back of the net all the time. We're like, okay, let's see if this carries over. Well, yeah, it has. He's had 2 braces. He's had 7 goals in league play. He's had 2 more in Open Cup play. It's ridiculous, the run he's been on. The most goals he scored in a season was 10 with the Jacksonville Armada 7 years ago in the NASL. He's at 9. We haven't hit the halfway point of the season yet. Yeah. And so the pace that he is on is just tremendous. The guy that has been feeding him most of the time is Aiden Stanley. And Aiden is a guy that has played in our league, but has never put up the numbers that he has put up this year. He has 6 assists in league matches. He's got 2 more in cup competitions. Again, if you look for a combined record, the combined record in a season is 9 that Solomon Asante had last year, 3 of those in one Open Cup match and 6 over the course of the league season. And so Aiden Stanley could pass that in the next match or two. And again, we're not to the halfway point of the season.
Yeah.
The other thing that has seemingly changed, again, I tend to point more to level of competition and just the whole familiarity thing for this team. But Indy kind of made a goalkeeper switch after that Lou City Charleston double, after giving up 9 goals, again, to 2 very good teams. They decided to go with the young man they had brought in on loan from Portland Timbers and Hunter Salt, who's 21 years of age, who's from Alaska, who stands all of 6'7". He kind of got the nod in the Colorado Springs match, which was a 1-1 draw, which at the time felt like a disappointment because the Switchbacks in their first 5 matches had scored 1 goal. And Hunter kind of gave up a fluke loose rebound goal in that match. Indy wins 1-1. We didn't know that was the start of something back then. But Hunter has been the primary keeper other than the match against Miami, and he's been tremendous. Indy has not given up a goal, for example, in Open Cup play. The first of those matches was Yannick Odell, who was the primary starter last year until he got hurt right after Indy played in Pittsburgh at the end of July. But Salt has been the guy. And again, he's not had to do too many crazy things, but seemingly the team has played better since he's been in there. So I could point to 11 different guys on the field. But if you're looking for 2 or 3, those are the things I would focus on for this match.
So lots to like about this team.
Correct.
What do you not like? Are there any weaknesses? Is there anything that you look at that you think the team could improve upon? Obviously they're on this hot streak right now.
No, I mean when things are going the way they are, and I thought that Saturday was a great result for Indy because frankly it was the best team they have played during that run. Now let's make sure we give Phoenix a bit of an asterisk there for Saturday because their travel schedule has been brutal. Yeah. It's the good problem you want to have if you keep playing in the Open Cup, but they had to play in Seattle on Wednesday night and then come play in Indianapolis on Saturday night. That's tough. Earlier this month, their Open Cup draw was at North Carolina and then fly to Detroit to play a league match on Saturday. And you've now done that within the span of 3 weeks. That's a tough ask. Is Phoenix as good as they were last year when they won the entire league? Probably not. Are they still a playoff team in the West? I think that's the case.
Yeah.
And so, Indy's run of opponents have not been great, or certainly what they were the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. But at the same time, they have been crushing people.
Yeah.
In terms of winning against Miami 3-1, frankly, the one probably should have been a foul that was called that didn't, and Indy missed a couple of sitters. You ask what you'd like to see better. Maybe you want to see Augie Williams finish a few more times. But my goodness, he's got 5 league goals, and he's got another one in Open Cup play. And so he's on track to do what he normally does, which is score about 15 goals, over the course of the season. So you can't complain about that. So literally when you have come off a perfect month, when you have won every game that's been put in front of you, your only complaint is that by the time that Indy plays Pittsburgh, it's a different month. It's June. We can complain about the calendar. That's about it right now for the Indy 11.
So yes, I won't say it's looking bleak for the Hounds, but we could talk about that more later. A little bit off the field stuff. We've seen renderings of 11 Park. It looks amazing. I think it's about time that this organization gets their own stadium after bouncing around a lot. So first of all, just congrats. I know that there have been some road bumps and things that have happened over the course. Does it still sound like 11 Park is going to happen?
Well, that's been part of the big thing. And so while the month on the field has been great for both the Indy 11 men and the Indy 11 women, and again, the women play in the W League, the amateur league, won the league last year and put up 10 goals in a match on Thursday. They put up 16 in 3 matches so far. They picked up 7 points of 9. So the on-field standpoint, everything is great. And Indy 11 fans were able to go see 5 matches in 8 days over the course of last week, there's never been a stretch like that in league history. The off the field has hit a bit of a hurdle. There is talk of a potential different ownership group that is trying to bring an MLS franchise here that is not the Indy 11 ownership group. And so right now there is quite the political struggle. And this story has many layers. The side in which the Indy 11 have been wanting to build on and have purchased and have raised is the side of the former Diamond Chain Manufacturing Company. It also, 100 years ago, was the site of a cemetery of predominantly African Americans in the early days of the city of Indianapolis. And there is now a varying level of reports as to potentially how many remains are there and what the cost of moving those, relocating those, potentially going to a different site is. There is also seemingly an accusation from the city of Indianapolis that the Indy 11 don't have the funds to complete the project or aren't viable as an MLS franchise, and that another potential group could be viable as an MLS franchise. So there is talk about a different stadium site where the Indy 11 are hoping to build is kind of on the southwest corner of downtown, due west of Lucas Oil Stadium, due south of Victory Field. And Pittsburgh fans should know about that as the AAA farm team of the Pittsburgh Pirates for the best part of the last 20 years. That's where it would be if this new site is approved to be on the southeast corner of downtown, which is over by Cambridge Fieldhouse, where obviously the Pacers play and where the NBA All-Star game, was just 3 months ago. So there is a lot of political back and forth, and I don't think there's uncertainty about the future of the Indy 11, but there had been this target or hope that 11 Park was going to be ready by 2025, and then it became 2026. And right now, everything's kind of on hold. So the on the field side of things is going exceedingly well, maybe has never gone better. The off the field stuff has hit a very surprising speed bump over the course of the last month. And there's not exactly a defined path forward, good or bad, right now for kind of all involved.
If you were a betting man, how do you see this all shaking out?
I have no idea. And so I think I'm good at breaking down the soccer side of things and giving you the history of the team and what they're doing well. On this front, I would hate to speculate. What I know is this is one of the best supported teams in our league. Last year, I think we were third in attendance behind Sacramento and Louisville. This is obviously a larger market for the USL Championship. I think the whole stadium issue is kind of an interesting it's kind of an interesting textbook for the remainder of the league. You've got Louisville that has built a great facility for the championship, a great facility for the NWSL. Maybe at some point in time you could add on to it to get it to MLS standards.
Right.
But the question with Louisville has not been, will they support the team? Is it a major league soccer size market?
Right.
Indy is a bigger community. Frankly, Indy and Pittsburgh are not that different in terms of numbers of top level sports franchises and market size and having some, not all, et cetera. And so this is kind of an interesting textbook case. I would also kind of point out, Colorado Springs built a stadium that's perfect for the championship. They built a 7,000 or 8,000 seat stadium because they know from a market size standpoint, they're not an MLS market. We're kind of a tweener here. We're kind of somewhere in the middle. And so exactly how this plays out, I honestly don't know. What I do know is this team has had wonderful support. This team will continue to have wonderful support. And what happens in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, I think will determine exactly what the future of this franchise is. But I do know this. There will be professional soccer in Indianapolis, and I do think there will be the Indy 11 in Indianapolis as well.
Love it. You mentioned the women's team being part of the USLW. I think this is their third season. You guys won it all last year. The Hounds have announced that they are going to have a USLW team in 2025. So we are pretty excited. You have sort of, firsthand experience covering a W team. Tell me a little bit about, how the team has been supported and basically what the past 3 years have been like.
Sure. So we played our championship match in front of 5,400 fans last year. We played it right before an Indy 11 men's match at Carroll Stadium on the campus of IUPUI. And again, the tie in there, IUPUI in the Horizon League, same as Robert Morris from the Pittsburgh area. So yet another tie of similarities between our two markets. The W League is primarily a league for current college players or college players that maybe have just completed their eligibility who are trying to latch on to that professional opportunity. From a standpoint of Indy, we are unique in that we have some former pros that either are hoping to play for the Super League team here, which we're hoping for next year. No official word if that gets delayed with the whole stadium process being delayed at this point. But we also have just pros that live here that say, you know what? This is how I scratch the competitive itch. So like, for example, Our top player the last couple of years has been a player named Maddie Williams. Maddie is in her late 20s. Maddie played professionally in England, in Spain and in Holland, amongst other places. In fact, she scored 13 goals for Zaragoza in Spain before she got hurt in the pandemic hit in 2020. When the pandemic hit, she got hurt. She goes, you know what? Maybe it's time to come home and work on my Purdue degree. So she is an engineer who plays soccer on the side. She had a brace in Thursday's game in the 10-0 win against St. Charles. So the team that we trotted out on Thursday had 4 players that have played some level of professional soccer in terms of this country or in terms of overseas, but aren't currently employed playing soccer. So they are technically, once again, amateurs and allowed to play in the W League. So it's a more compact schedule. Again, think about like a summer collegiate baseball league. Because you have to kind of play around class schedules and things like that. So our first game of the year was on May 14th against Racing Louisville's academy team, beat them 3-1. Our last regular season game will also be against Racing Louisville, beat them by a score, or hopefully beat them by as we beat them pretty much every time we play. There's been one draw. It's been in that group as well. I would say there's a very good chance that the Pittsburgh team could be placed in our division. Our division has been Indy, Louisville, Lexington, Kings Hammer, which is Northern Kentucky / Cincinnati. St. Charles has been kind of pushed into our group from St. Louis. They've been kind of the least competitive of the group. The first year of the league, us, Louisville, and Kings Hammer all played in a Michigan league, Michigan division. Now there is enough teams up there. They kind of have their own group. We have a group called the Valley Division. There's 5 of us. We just play each other. 10 games. Division champ qualifies for the playoffs. Indy won 4 playoff matches last year, and the season basically spanned from, say, May 10th or so. We played the championship July 21st, and that's kind of the footprint / time window that we have to enjoy the women's team here in Indianapolis at this point.
Do you think the women's team will do the repeat and go 2 years in a row?
Certainly possible. The league has grown from 44 teams to 60-something teams to just shy of 80. Indy played the U23 team from the North Carolina Courage, obviously the NWSL. And again, because the Carolina is such a soccer hotbed, their entire team was basically kids that played at UNC, NC State, Duke, Wake Forest, etc. Again, we kind of have that pull here as well. We'll pull a lot of kids from the University of Louisville, Xavier, Butler, Indiana, Purdue. Again, players that have a little more seasoning than some others in terms that play for our team. But is Indy amongst the top 5-10 teams in the league? I think that's pretty safe to say, but you never know. When you don't have a second team that makes out of your division, you have to win your division. You have to get a foot right every game. So, like, for example, we've already played Kings Hammer to a 3-3 draw. Kings Hammer seemingly has a better team than they have had, in years gone by. So when Indy has that return date at Kings Hammer coming up later this month or into early June, it's going to be a very big game in terms of exactly what the immediate future looks like for the W League squad.
Well, obviously, best of luck to the women's team for this year, for certain. Transitioning back to the men's side, who I'm hoping have not as much luck, at least this weekend. Give me your score prediction here for Indy 11 versus the Riverhounds.
Well, I think anytime that Indy and Pittsburgh play, the over-under for a goal is 0.5, right? Yeah. I mean, you've seen a Bob Lilly team before. Last year was such an anomaly. What Indy did at Pittsburgh, scoring 4. Obviously, it was the only regular season loss the Hounds had at Highmark. And off the top of my head, I can think of 2 Indy 11 wins in that building. The other being 2000, the COVID-shortened year, the Tyler Pasher at the death, 97th minute, where seemingly he beats the entire team on a long-distance ball and hits one from 30. In terms of importance, there have been far more important Indy 11 goals. In terms of beauty, it's in the top 2 or 3.
For sure.
Ridiculous, the ball that he hit in that match. And frankly, that Indy team got off to a 4-0 start to that season, and it kind of crumpled from that point in time on. But that was still a great moment in club history. And so I know this Pittsburgh team has not been the Pittsburgh team of years gone by. That Bob has seemingly found a way, even as talent would leave, to squeeze out results as best he could. This group's been very streaky. That's been evident so far. So I'd be stunned if it's more than anything more than 2-1 or 1-1 or 1-0. even for the run of form that both these teams have been on. This is one of those games in your schedule. If you take a point from Highmark, you feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
4 out of 17 teams accomplished that last year. Only one team took all 3 until the playoffs, and that's the team that I commentate for in the Indy 11. So if it's 1-1 or 0-0, tip your cap, get on the bus, and come home. You got a point. Job well done. If you can nick 1 or 2 early, then I think it's an Indy 11 win. But this is one of those results where you simply go, hey, if you get a point here, you feel good about it, move on to the next one.
Greg, this has been fantastic. I want to be respectful of your time. Let everybody know where they can catch you online and all the great stuff that you've been doing.
Sure. At Greg Rakestraw on Twitter is the best way to follow me there. And I'm lucky enough I get to broadcast Indy 11 games, home games. I actually do a handful of road games, and this is one of the ones that we're doing. I have never been privileged enough to be on the call of a match from Highmark. Now, again, the USL, we're not there. I'm doing it from a studio here in Indianapolis. So I'm going to come to your beautiful city, which I need to do at some point in time, especially since it's not that far away from Indianapolis. But I'll have the call here in Indianapolis on my Indy TV 23 of the match coming up Saturday night at 7 o'clock.
Fantastic. Greg, really appreciate it. Everyone be sure to go check out everything that you're doing, especially catching the call this weekend if you're not able to make it down to Highmark. Greg, hopefully we'll talk again in the future, man. This has been great.
Of course. Pleasure to come on. Thanks for having me.